Right, so guys, I've taken some time out from driving so that I could speak to you about something that inspired me this week. So this week I went to Zimbabwe for just one day. I went in on Monday, I was out on Tuesday. But in the 1.5 days that I've been in Zimbabwe, I saw more things than I have seen in my entire life in Zimbabwe. In these 1.5 days, I saw $1 million, if not more. I held it with my own hands. I saw 2 kgs of gold, and I saw a millionaire that doesn't have a JC, that comes from the villages, Kwamutare. Now, this inspired me so much that I felt that I would like to share my experience with you in what I saw in Zimbabwe. First of all, to inspire you, but secondly, to inform you that what it is that we hear about Zimbabwe, that which people tell us on social media, what we believe in the diaspora, is so vastly different to the reality that is on the ground in Zimbabwe. Now, I'm not saying Zimbabwe is perfect, and I'm not saying Zimbabwe does not have problems. But what I saw will make you understand what I'm saying right now. When I was supposed to go to Zimbabwe and I had this meeting in Zimbabwe, I was very hesitant to go. I was very hesitant to go because I was scared to be disappointed by the state of Zimbabwe. I was scared to see a dysfunctional country, yet I'm always punting and promoting this country based on my illusion. So I was scared to be proved wrong. However, I had to go for this meeting, so I went. The very first thing that happened is I get to the airport, we get into the flight, and the flight is full. It is a British Airways flight going into Zimbabwe. Nations that have got sanctions against us, but it's flying into Zimbabwe. On the flight, there's a lot of Europeans, white South Africans, black South Africans, going to Zimbabwe for something that we are running away from. Now, you know how I feel about white people. I'm not really crazy about them. And I don't believe that their being there is a sign of success. But you need to understand the irony that at a time where most black people across the world have been told not to go into Zimbabwe, when Zimbabwe has been demarketed in most black people's minds, the white people that are giving the negative publicity are making their way into Zimbabwe while we are running away from Zimbabwe. Anyway, we get to the airport. The airport is looking pretty presentable. Get into a car, start driving to Harare. The dual carriageway is finished. The airport route is looking way much better than what it used to be. On the sides, people are building homes. And then when I get to Granite Side, I see new offices that I've never seen before. Now, I used to work in Granite Side at Tire Trades. But all of a sudden, there's new buildings, new offices, new office parks, and little factories that I'm seeing that never existed before. And all of a sudden, I start wondering, what is going on here? This country is falling apart. So who is it that is building these new offices? Who is building factories in a country that's falling apart? Go to my meeting, finish my meeting, and decide to run over to go and see a friend of mine. Get to their office. They're not prepared for me. But anyway, they say, no, you know what? I was actually going to go out for lunch. So now that you're here, let me wind up and then we go for lunch. So let me go and get my bag from the office. Walk together to the office, open the door to the office, and just like casually walks in there, and on the ground there's like $1 million point something sitting on the ground in US dollars. Then this person tells me that, you know what, let me put this money into the wardrobe. The safe is already full. Takes the money, puts it into the wardrobe, and that's it, we leave. This person is supplying eggs, chicken, and other agricultural produce to shops in Harare. This person comes from a very poor background. They don't really have money. They don't come from an influential family. They're not politically connected, but they're just supplying the needs of Zimbabweans and making money. Went for lunch, same levy. Same levy has improved. It's bigger. There's new shops. It was unbelievable. Obviously, somebody is spending money there. I then had to leave and meet another friend of mine in town. Went to see this friend of mine, but this friend didn't really have much time because they were running with some gold that they had to take through to one of the government companies that buys this gold. I was shocked to see for the very first time in my life smelted 2 kgs of gold in the hands of a friend that I grew up with, that I know well, who's never had money, who's just was a dreamer like me. He was holding this and he was saying that every 3 to 4 days they produce that amount of gold and they sell it. Now, My mind was blown away because just here I had met two friends, come from a poor background, left the diaspora to go back home to take advantage of the opportunities that are there, and they've become millionaires. Now, some of you might say that, maybe I don't know these people. They might have political connections, so I can't speak on their behalf. I think I'm qualified to speak for them, but however, I've got another story. A family member who didn't even have JC, a family member that has got no O-levels, who grew up Kutsonzo, Kwamutare, and we always believed that this person would never really turn out to be much. However, this guy came from Tsonzo 10 years ago to look for a job in Harare without qualifications, started working in a parts shop, and today he's got his own parts shop. He's selling tires that are imported from Europe, and he's become a millionaire in US dollar terms. He's built a huge mansion, 4 bedrooms in suites, amazing house, and he's now got 4 tow trucks that he complements his business with. He's a young man, did not have the privilege that I say grew up with. He did not go to the schools that I went. He did not have qualifications, no degrees, but the man has become a millionaire in Zimbabwe at a time where everybody else is whining, complaining about that. We made our way to my auntie that lives in Glenora, where they've also extended their house into a beautiful place. And there we saw people planting maize all over Harare. In these townships, wherever there is a space, there is maize that are growing there. And my aunt was saying, we've also got a patch and we grow maize. And every year we don't have to buy mealie meal. We actually just grow maize, and that maize that we grow, we grind it and it gives us the mealie meal we need, and we sell the surplus to the millers or to GMB. I met another gentleman who also owns one of the mills, who's also got his own brand that is actually supplying in Zimbabwe. Immediately I got to realize that the problem is those of us that are in the diaspora spend our time complaining about everything, whining, moaning, talking about how it is that we do not have political connections, talking about how it is that land is difficult to get. But I went to Zimbabwe and saw people that are not applying for land from government. They're utilizing any patch that they can find, and they're growing their maize, sweet potatoes, and groundnuts that they're bringing to South Africa, making foreign currency. I saw people that are growing chickens, pork, mining gold, utilizing the land and resources that are in Zimbabwe to enrich themselves without making excuses. At no point did I hear any of these guys talk about sanctions. At no point did I hear these guys talk about corruption. They're simply talking about needing more land, needing more capital in order to produce more. This gave me a wake-up call. The diaspora, our educational qualifications have made a lot of us lazy, have made a lot of us complacent, have made a lot of us have expectations from others without us wanting to create for ourselves, produce for ourselves, to take ourselves out of poverty. But yet I saw 3 millionaires in that small window. I've lived in South Africa for a very long time, and many of my friends are not millionaires. Very few people have seen $1 million US, but here people in Zimbabwe are talking about millions of dollars as if they're talking about cents. They don't live on debt. They're producing with money that comes out of their own pocket, then nobody is financing them. And these people are getting it done. These people are doing it. And all of a sudden it hit me. This nation that took its land, this nation that took its resources, was sanctioned for exactly what's happening in Zimbabwe, to try and stop the Zimbabwean from prospering, because if he prospers, he sends a message to the entire black world, including the American Indians in America, that natives can take back their land, be productive, and prosper, because the resources, the land, is where the wealth is. These people that I saw in Zimbabwe are living this on a daily basis. They are not whining. They're not expecting someone to come from Europe to give them a job. They're not waiting for somebody to come and save them. They're saving themselves. And this left me with a question. What are we doing in the diaspora? How many of you in the diaspora have ever seen $1 million? How many of you in the diaspora will ever see $1 million? How many of you executives will see $1 million in your lives? How many of you executives that are driving cars on debt, houses on debt, are ever going to get to a point where you will have $1 million that you've made, that you're putting in your safe because it belongs to you? Money is not everything. But these are markers that you all used to get out of the country, is to say that Zimbabwe is not financially viable, economically viable. Well, the examples are there that it is economically viable. In fact, it is an economic heaven. That is why planes are coming to Zimbabwe full of foreigners coming to get opportunity. And while they're doing that, we're busy whining, moaning on social media. Our media is busy giving a negative publicity instead of marketing Zimbabwe to everybody in Africa for them to come and look for gold, get land, produce, make money. Instead of marketing the opportunity in Zimbabwe to African Americans, instead of Ghana taking all the African Americans and their money, we should be marketing ourselves to the football stars and the rappers and the musicians to bring their millions into a land where they can actually own resources, the real capital makers, which are the gold, the diamonds, the oil, the gas, the land. We need to wake up as a people. We need to start understanding what we're sitting on. We're sitting on a gold mine, and other people have discovered that we're sitting on a gold mine. They've left the diaspora, they've become millionaires because they know what it is that we have in Zimbabwe. And some of us are still sleeping. And this is why I'm making this video, to say to you, stop sleeping. Stop making excuses. Because my cousin's not making excuses even though he doesn't have a JC. My cousin's not making excuses even though he grew up in Zonzo. He's making it happen. It's time that we all made it happen. Zimbabwe is a miracle.